Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I can still see that there's a few of you joining, but I am going to get started because I'm just conscious that we've got quite a bit to get through. Welcome to the Starting Out in Law Masterclass, and welcome to our panelists as well. This is the second masterclass of our autumn term schedule, and we've got a fantastic panel lined up for you today. And as I said, a lot to get through as well. So hopefully you'll enjoy the masterclass, and please do get involved in the conversation through the Q&A function on here. Before we get started, I just want to begin by kind of sharing some learning outcomes. So hopefully by the end of this masterclass, you will have a clear idea of what it is that a solicitor does, understand what a vacation scheme, training contract or solicitor apprenticeship is, and also understand how and when you should be applying for firms or looking for work experience. So before we get going, I'm just going to run through some house rules quickly. So first and foremost, please do make sure that you make the most of the online question tool to post any questions that you have. I will be checking these throughout and posing them to the panel. Please, just let us know if you have any questions, and also use the tool if you have any audio or visual problems, and we will try to do our best to help you. Please also note that the masterclass will be recorded. The recording of the session will be sent to you all after the session, and it will also be available on our YouTube channel. If you want to post about the masterclass, please do so. You can use the hashtag LCM Masterclass. And also just a reminder that we have a lot of masterclasses coming up over the autumn term. So please do check the events page on LCN. Our next one is on Thursday next week, and is all about understanding the work of intellectual property lawyers. We'll cover kind of the types of clients that you might deal with and how you might break into this particular area of law as well. We have a jam-packed schedule of masterclasses, so make sure you keep your eye on the LCN website and your emails for details about any that you might be interested in. Okay, I'm going to start with a poll. So if I could get all attendees just to answer this first poll for me. So what stage are you at? I'll give you a few minutes just to answer that. So GCSE student, sixth form college student, first year law, non-law, career changer or other. Tiny amount of GCSE students, majority sixth form and college students, a few first years, few non-laws, couple career changers and some other as well, but majority sixth form and college student. Okay, and then next poll is just asking what you're worried about. So deciding on a route, so whether you want to go to uni or do an apprenticeship, passing the SQE exams or the bar course, depending on whether you want to become a solicitor or barrister, securing work experience, making applications, or the impact of AI. So securing work experience looks like the thing that most people are worried about, but it's pretty even. So we'll make sure that we cover those bits today. And you can also head to Law Careers Net for answers and advice on some of those things as well. Fab. So let's get started. I'm going to ask each of the panelists first just to introduce themselves. Just going with the order on my screen. So Anthony, if I could get you to introduce yourself first for me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony. I am here today with Clyde Co, where I am a third seat, so I'm a second year trainee, and I'm currently sitting in the tax department. Background-wise, I am a non-law student, and I did the old conversion course and the LPC before it switched to the SQE.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alana?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Alana Bathgate. I'm an early careers advisor at Addleshaw Goddard. I've been in this type of role for around about 6 years now, although I've been at AG for just over 2 years. I am based in the Edinburgh office, and I support the recruitment processes that we run for placement schemes and training contracts across Scotland and Dublin. I have an equivalent in my team who looks after England, but we do cross over quite a bit in terms of our roles. and also at this time of year getting involved in attending events and getting out onto campus to meet people as well and answer any questions that people have. That's me.
Brilliant, thank you. And Fran?
Hi everyone, I'm a trainee at DWF. I'm also, same as Anthony, in my third seat, so second year. Currently sat in the regulatory compliance and investigations team. Was previously sat in banking before that. Had a fairly traditional route into law, so I did law degree at undergrad, followed by my LPC. I then paralegalled for 2 years, and then was an internal applicant through DWF, and secured my training contracts that way. So I didn't do any vacation schemes, but I did apply to other firms as well. So I've got lots of experience in the application process.
Brilliant, thank you, everybody. So I guess first things first, I'm going to come back to you, Anthony. I guess, what do students need to know about pursuing a legal career? Quite a broad question, so I'm just going to go a bit more specific. What is it that solicitors do, and how do you work out whether a career in law is the right fit for you?
Yeah, so there are so many different types of solicitors, and we cover so many things. But to sort of keep it brief, essentially what we are doing is solving problems for our clients, just under the framework of the law, as we call it, and that covers things like criminal law, defending clients, all the way up to what I'm doing now, which is sort of tax planning, tax structuring, essentially using sort of our specialist knowledge in law to help clients. And as to figuring out whether you're going to be a good lawyer, a good solicitor, I think my honest answer would be technically anyone can do it. With sort of the right amount of effort, but in general, it's a very competitive, it's a very challenging academic professional field. And if you are someone that likes to sort of solve very complex problems, sort of learn throughout the entirety of your career, and sort of you want to work in with people, for people, over the course of your life, then you're definitely already pointing towards potentially a career in law. But I don't think there are any sort of massively high bars or anything towards it. If you've got the motivation, you can definitely become a solicitor.
Brilliant, thanks, Anthony. And we saw from the poll at the start that we've got a real range of attendees today in terms of the stage that they're at. We have a fair few first year students. So Alana, just coming to you, what would you recommend first years are doing in the first year of their degree to kind of launch their career in law? Oh, I think we might have lost Alana. Fran, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to come to you for this question. So whether it's kind of first year of university or before uni, is there anything that you would recommend our attendees do to get themselves kind of ready to launch a legal career?
I think research would be the clear starting point. Obviously, it's a big working sphere. There's lots of different, as Anthony said, there's lots of different types of lawyers. Obviously, lots of different practice areas. So just researching into the sort of skills you have and compare them to the sort of areas that you want to work in. A legal career doesn't necessarily have to be a solicitor. You can be a barrister. We have, I know specifically in our firm, we have what we call support lawyers, and they basically just do research. So if you think research is your strong point, you're not necessarily going to practice like a traditional lawyer. You can be sort of a research lawyer. So there's loads of different jobs out there. So I think researching will be the biggest thing to see what you're interested in, and trying different things. Researchy firms. Obviously, there's lots of different firms, ranging from high street to global firms, and obviously deciding which sort of one you think would tailor best to your skills and what you enjoy doing.
Perfect. I think that's key as well, just highlighting that barrister and solicitor aren't the only two kind of careers you can go into. There are a lot of other options. Alana, you're back. Can you hear me okay?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. We were just chatting about things that students can be doing, whether they're in sixth form or first year of university, depending on their stage, to kind of get them ready to kickstart a career in law or figure out whether a career in law is the right fit for them. Oh, I think we might have lost her again. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next bit. So, timeframes for making applications. I think this is a bit of a key one. It can be quite confusing to knowing at what stage you should be making your applications and what you should be applying for as well. There are obviously lots of different elements to this. So, Fran, when would you say aspiring lawyers should start thinking about making applications for vacation schemes to start with?
So I think the standard turnaround time is, if you want to go straight from university to SQE to your training contract, obviously depends what sort of firms and how they implement the SQE, because obviously I did the LPC, so it's run slightly different to SQE, but you usually apply in your second year of university if you want to have that space guaranteed for when you finish your SQE, or if you want your SQE to start after you finish university. I took a bit of a gap year, would you say, and I worked. So I didn't actually apply in second year. I only applied for my training contract last year. So I think my first bit of advice would be, don't panic. If you don't have it lined up for when you leave university, it's not the end of the world. But obviously, if you want to start getting ahead of things, then second year of university would probably be the most ideal time to start applying. And it's also, obviously, if you don't work, you've got the summer holidays. So it's more feasible that you can take, for anyone that doesn't know what a VAC scheme is, it's basically a 2-week work experience at the firm, and you come and you join the firm. I know at DWF you get paid whilst you do it, and it's basically a 2-week long interview. And then people get their spots on the training contract following that. So yeah, second year of university, you usually have about 3 months to complete your application. And I would say firms' applications run quite differently. So I know DWFs is usually like early in spring, but I know other firms obviously run to like October, September. So there are applications throughout the year. I would try and limit it to about 8 per year. They are quite long, and you have to put quite a lot of work into it, especially if you want to be successful. I spent God knows how many hours on applications throughout my time when I was applying. If you want to find a good place for deadlines, the Law Careers net.net, they actually have a website on their page, and it basically has all the deadlines of each firm's applications, which I found was really helpful. So I scrolled through that, researched all the firms I wanted to apply to, and then basically diarised when all the applications were due. I think when you're doing that, you've also got to take into account that you don't just need to block out time for the applications. You also need to block out time for your video interviews, your assessment centres, and the other processes that are involved in the application, because it's not just your 3,000 words application. You've got to obviously think about things that are coming off the back of that, and you obviously want to put as much time into each stage as possible for each firm, obviously, because you want to be successful at the end of it.
That's great, thank you. And I think just jumping on that as well, I think Fran mentioned, but there are schemes in winter and also spring and summer. So just be aware that there will be different application cycles for those. So for example, winter vacation scheme applications kind of open now at some firms. Not all firms offer winter vac schemes, but worth just bearing in mind. Anthony, just coming to you, obviously we've spoken a bit about university, but going to uni isn't the only route into law. Can you tell us a little bit about the solicitor apprenticeship route at your firm, and who this is aimed at?
Yeah, of course. So other than going to university, which has sort of been the traditional route, there are now vastly more options, including this solicitor apprenticeship, otherwise known also as the sort of degree apprenticeship. And essentially what it is you don't go to university, you sort of essentially do university
on the job. So it's sort of a straight dive into the world of law, and essentially what happens is by the time the program, the solicitor apprenticeship program ends, you will have a full LLB, so a full undergraduate law degree from the University of Law, and you will have completed the courses for SQE1, SQE2, and SQE Plus, which is just a sort of an additional part. So essentially, it's sort of it's almost a slightly more practical way of approaching the career, because you essentially learn all the skills that you need sort of all in one go, whilst being able to also practice it and working. And at Clyde Co, this program I think has been running for a year. It's been hugely successful, so it's going to continue to run. And I think the only qualification that you need for that is an AAB at A level. But again, knowing the firm, they are flexible, and things can be adjusted according to sort of your circumstance and things. So something to consider. And every year it changes a little bit in terms of sort of how to apply and things. So the best advice there would be, if Clyde Co is an area that interests you, or a firm that interests you, more like check out the sort of careers page, and that will be updated with sort of deadlines and more info on our specific program.
Great, thank you. And I think just to kind of explain for those listening, so obviously, because I know some of you are sixth form students as well, so obviously you go to sixth form, go to college, do your A levels. You could then apply, and you could go to university and do a law degree, and then apply for VAC schemes, training contracts, do the SQE, etc., and qualify that way. You could do your A levels, go to university, do a non-law degree, which I believe is what Anthony did, then be expected, although it's not required anymore, you'll be expected by firms to do a conversion course, do your SQE prep, etc., do the SQE exams, qualify that way. But you could also qualify by doing your A levels and doing the solicitor apprenticeship. With the SQE as well, there's also now graduate solicitor apprenticeship, which works kind of very much in the same way to a training contract, in that you would go to university, do your degree, do a conversion course if you did a non-law degree, or go straight into the graduate apprenticeship if you did a law degree. So yeah, tons of different routes in, basically. Fran, just thinking about the kind of application recruitment process, what advice would you have for those thinking about making a vacation scheme application, for example? How do you decide which firms to apply to? And yeah, what would be like your top tip for making a vacation scheme application?
I think my biggest tip in any application that you do for any firm is show your personality. At the end of the day, I know DWF read theirs in-house, but to any firm, obviously you've got people at the other end reading thousands, hundreds of different applications, and you essentially need to get yourself across in the X amount of words that you've got to do that. That can be quite difficult, but I think if you want to write about something and you're passionate about it, get it down. Obviously, also, in the same sense, make sure you answer the question. Don't write things just because you want to write them down if it's not what it's been asked, but just try and be authentic and show your personality in any question that you get asked. I found the application process very hard. I don't like writing about myself and telling everyone how great I am. But at the end of the day, you're competing against, obviously, people that also want these things, and you've got to show how great you are. But yeah, I think being authentic is my biggest tip, if that helps.
That's great, thank you. And I think as well, just getting other people to read your application is always a really good idea.
Yeah.
And kind of like critical, I guess, making sure that, I think the biggest thing that we hear is make sure it's specific to the firm that you're applying to. If you can copy and paste your answers for your application, then it's probably not going to do the job.
Yeah.
Alana, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, goodness. Apologies, everybody.
At all these things happen. It wouldn't be a masterclass without some Wi-Fi issues. just coming to you on this next question. So I was just talking to Fran about the application and recruitment process, but wondered whether there was anything that you think candidates should know about the application or recruitment process before they kind of get started.
Yeah, I guess there are some of the logistical things, if you like to put it that way. So make sure that you've had a look at the deadlines for the firms that you want to apply to, and you've got a note of those to make sure that you can get your applications in good time. Do firms recruit on a rolling basis? It's also useful to know ahead of making your applications as well. It does differ a little bit between firms. And I think as well, just making sure that you've had a look at their website, for example, done your research, you've taken the opportunity where possible to speak to people and ask questions so that you're putting yourself with your best foot forward, I guess, to start going through that application process. The process or processes themselves will differ between firms as well. So have a look at that and make sure that you are aware of what's coming so you can start preparing. And I guess as well, some of the things that you might mention in an application form, for example, might be something that be picked up later on in the application process as well. So I think I heard Fran talking there about being authentic and answering questions sort of openly and honestly, which will help as well if something does come up further down the line in an application process. You will naturally have more to say about it and be able to talk about it.
That's great, thank you. And obviously it's important for candidates to research the firm and get to know the firm. Alana, just sticking with you, what opportunities are there to find out more about law firms?
Yeah, so there are various different things. It depends on, I guess, what stage you're at. So to cover a few of them, open days, at AG, for example, we run open days for those starting out in their degree, whether that's law or non-law, an opportunity to get into the firm, find out a bit more, meet people at different stages of their career as well, to give you a bit more of a feel for the firm, the type of work that we're doing, get a feel for the culture as well. Law fairs or virtual events or in-person events as well, have a look at firms' websites. At AG, for example, we list all of the events that we're attending as well as the events that we ourselves are running. So, it gives you an opportunity to meet people and ask questions, engage with the career service and the law society, for example, at university. So they also will be able to offer advice, but they also might be able to advise when firms may be on campus as well. So again, another opportunity to be meeting people. And then I guess, I've mentioned firms' own websites, but also third-party websites. So, a lot of websites have profiles on firms, and also they engage with trainees and others within firms as well. So you can get that first-hand reflection and experience also to kind of help you, I suppose, bring to light a bit more the research that you are doing and get that a little bit more of a personal touch where possible as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And we spoke at the start, Anthony, about what it is that solicitors do, but could you just kind of outline what it is that what a kind of day in the life of a trainee solicitor looks like, and how students can, I guess, find out a bit more about that?
Yeah, so essentially, as a trainee, you aren't necessarily expected to be sort of doing, incredible pieces of sort of complex work. You are there to essentially learn and assist, and that sort of is the key role as a trainee. So, standard sort of thing would be sort of get into work, as I'm sort of coming into work, I'll check my email, see what's sort of on my list, and this can range from drafting reports, drafting letters, carrying out research, producing certain documents for clients. You sometimes when you're sort of the partners who are sort of the big cheeses at the firms, when they're attending meetings, you'll be taking notes, just to have a record of what's being spoken, and essentially, where the team needs you, you're sort of slotting in here and there and making sure that the rest of the team are able to function sort of as efficiently as they can, and as much as it is very sort of easy for me to say. It might be quite hard to picture, and a lot of these sort of opportunities, like vacation schemes, like we've mentioned, like Alana's mentioned, in terms of, if you meet actual other trainees like myself or associates at law fairs or at open days, you will be given sort of a much deeper insight into sort of exactly what runs.
That's great, thanks, Anthony. And Alana, just coming back to you, we spoke a little bit about the opportunities to kind of network with the firms, get to know them. How should students kind of go about researching the area of law that they're interested in, but also researching then off of the back of that, the law firms? Like, what's your best practice, would you say, for that?
Sure. I guess there are some opportunities to find out wider than websites, if you like. So some firms, for example, run virtual work experience programs, which are an opportunity to get a bit more of a feel as to the kind of work that happens within that firm. But I also think that it is important to have a think about what it is that you yourself are looking for in your career and where your strengths lie as well. If there is any opportunity for work experience or engaging with firms on any level, so you can get a bit more of an idea of the day-to-day work and what's involved. But what I would say is keep an open mind, and also take your time with it. There's no pressure to decide, going into a placement scheme, for example, as to the area of law that you want to ultimately qualify into. I think if you have an interest, then take the opportunities where you can to explore that more, but also keep an open mind. We have instances with our trainees where they may go into their training contract thinking they'll definitely qualify into X area, and actually by the end of their training contract, their mind has completely changed, or they thought they maybe wouldn't enjoy a particular seat, but after having experienced that, they've actually really, really enjoyed their time there, and that also, may change where they want to kind of ultimately take their career in the direction of. So I think you definitely use the resources that are available, but also keep an open mind and be curious and try and ask questions along the way, just to give yourself as much information as possible to then help you with that decision when the time comes.
Perfect, thank you. We've got quite a few questions coming in, so I'm just going to jump to them, because we were going to look at work experience and volunteering opportunities and things next. That was the next thing on my list. So someone has asked, how can you get law or legal work experience as a year 12 student? Alana, I don't know if that's one for you. Oh, I think she might be frozen again. So Fran or Anthony, do either of you have anything you could offer there?
I think, I don't know if it'd be quite, I know we do some sort of like work experience weeks, but it's not kind of open to anyone to apply. I think it's quite hard. Year 12 is final year of college, isn't it? I think it's quite hard. I think I shadowed a barrister in year 12, but that was through someone I know. Use your connections if you know anyone in the legal sphere. As my dad always says, squeaky wheel gets the oil, like pester people. I don't know if you'll have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a fantastic way to network. You just message trainees, barristers, whatever sort of career you want to go down, and just see if they've got any stuff that you can help with. I think, as I'll probably answer, I don't know if this is answering another question further down the list, but legal experience isn't the be-all and end-all. You can have other work experience which will assist you, one in being a solicitor, barrister, whatever route you want to go down, and in your applications. I know when I applied from this I was a paralegal at DWF before I was a trainee, and prior to that I had 0 legal work experience, and it didn't matter at all in the application process. So obviously try and get some in network, but it's not the end of the world if you haven't got any by the time you go to university.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that we hear that all the time from law firm recruiters as well. I think students feel like there's a lot of pressure for them to go and get all of this legal experience, but actually any non-legal experience you have, even kind of working part-time in Tesco's or McDonald's, somewhere like that, like you build up a skill set, and it's about picking apart those skills and being able to apply and show how they apply to the career of a solicitor. So one of my questions for Alana was, should candidates only mention legal experience on their applications? And I know that she, without putting words into her mouth, would have said no, legal and non-legal is important. So yeah, definitely bear that in mind. Just off the back of that, Anthony, what experiences do you think benefited your applications?
Yeah, I think I will absolutely mirror and build on what they've said. What Fran said, what we assume Alana would have said. It's, legal experience is by no means, the be all and end all. In the possibly sort of nicest way possible, is that any legal experience you have during university, sort of, a week there or day here and there, will have no impact on how good a trainee you are. Everything is new, everything is difficult when you start a training contract, and everyone's on the same page. Perhaps less so if sort of, you end up paralegaling for a little while like Fran did. Perhaps that might be helpful because essentially that is, a very up close job. But, in terms of experience, the things that benefited me most were sort of general experiences that I've had. So, I actually got asked a lot about travel and volunteering, and I spent 3 months living in a different country during a gap year teaching, and and as part of that, I sort of I hiked and sort of over mountains and things, and they were genuinely more interested in the things I learned from doing things like that. I have some experience working in investment banking. They didn't really care about things like that, but they did want to hear about I'd done a little bit of tutoring, or I'd worked, sort of helping schools and teachers, that kind of thing. And so, they were more interested in the things that I enjoyed and the things that I learned from, as opposed to the things that I put in my CV because I thought it sort of looked good. And so, being able to, but the key thing here being is being able to draw what you learnt and how you sort of developed as a sort of an aspiring lawyer from these various experiences is sort of the real skill. You might think, sort of as Olivia was saying, you might think working at Tesco or McDonald's might not necessarily be very glamorous, but all you need to do is turn around and say, well, actually, I figured out how to deal with a variety of people. People at McDonald's, some people are drunk, some people are really tired, some people are on their way to work. You end up dealing with a huge variety of different people, and you learn how to communicate with them in a different way. If a child comes up and wants a Happy Meal, you know how to deal with that. And that's a skill that law firms will massively value. If you're stacking shelves at Tesco, you've learned, exactly how to run an inventory. Where things go, that organization. Again, lawyers are horribly unorganized, and so they'll value that very much. So I think it's all about pulling out what you can from whatever experience you've had and molding it into sort of selling yourself.
Brilliant, thank you. And just to say here as well, we actually have an application hub on Law Careers Net with loads of advice on all the different stages. So whether you decide to apply for a vacation scheme or if you go down the barrister route and apply for mini pupillage, there's advice there for you. I'm just conscious of the time and aware of the number of questions we've got coming in, so I just wanted to touch on some more of these before we go back to ours. Someone has asked whether there are any particular A-levels that you need to take before for studying law at university. So Fran, perhaps one for you.
No. As far as I'm aware, I studied very rogue maths, physics, biology, and law. I actually wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but we won't go into that. So I would say no. Obviously, the downside of, I know I studied law, but it isn't, you don't study the same at A-level as you do university. But the only downside I would say of my A-levels, especially being very maths and science based, is by the time I'd got to university, I'd never written an essay and never referenced, which was a big learning curve. So obviously, if you do the sort of sociology, psychology, the sort of essay-based history A-levels, you'll probably be on a better footing to do things like writing essays, the legal research. You do get taught all of it at uni. It's not as if they just give you a 2,000-word essay on your first week and go, there you go, write that. There is the support there. They do workshops. Obviously, at university, it's more for you to do things for yourself. It's not kind of being spoon-fed as much as it is at college and school, but there is help and guidance there. So I would say no, just do what you're interested in. And I've always found that you'll do well if you're interested in something and actually want to learn. If you hate law, I would probably tell you now not to go into it because it's a heavy subject. And if you don't enjoy it, then it's going to be a long career ahead of you. So just do what you enjoy.
Yeah, I think you're much more likely to do better in subjects that you actually enjoy as well. Just looking at the rest of the questions. We've got a couple of people looking for paralegal work experience. So Fran, just sticking with you, do you have any advice for people when they're looking for paralegal experience in terms of, I guess, applications, speaking to firms about the opportunities, and maybe advice for when you are a paralegal?
Be open-minded. I think if you went on Indeed or however you're going to apply, there will be like paralegals for specific teams. So you could be like a paralegal for catastrophic injury. You could be a paralegal for real estate. I think don't close yourself off. If you've studied something at university and you think I never want to do that, you probably would enjoy it in practice. I think I'd say the biggest thing as a paralegal taught me is things in practice are very different to what I was taught at university, in a good way. Application wise, I applied to so many firms. Prior to, obviously, like I said before, I had no legal work experience. I'd actually worked as a waitress at university. I worked at a supermarket during COVID. I'd have done a whole host of jobs, and I, as Anthony and Olivia said earlier, you've just got to draw your experience and skills from that in your application. And the skills, obviously, I don't know what I did in the interview, but I must have done something right. And I was offered the job here. I worked here for 2 years as a paralegal. It's tough because when I'd say you're a trainee, obviously you're only in your seat for 6 months and they know that you're learning. As a paralegal, you're there to work and build money. It's not necessarily as a sort of learning aspect as a trainee is, but I think the experience from that will set you up so much better as an NQ. And yeah, I would recommend that if anyone's unsure, a paralegal experience is fantastic because you actually get a taste of what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life and a taste into the career, and then obviously working with people from different levels. So I've worked with partners, I've worked with obviously trainees. I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think it was a fantastic experience, and I don't think I'd be where I am today without doing that.
Perfect, thank you so much. We've got one question here as well, just moving on to the SQE. So it's, is it recommended that you complete a conversion course before you start the SQE if non-law graduate? I'm happy to take that just really briefly. So it's no longer required that you do a conversion course, but it is absolutely recommended. And if, for example, you secure a training contract with a law firm, and you did a non-law degree, they will most likely expect you to, in fact, they'll most likely require you to complete a conversion course before you then start the SQE prep with the firm and get started on the SQE exams as well. Is it possible to do the solicitor apprenticeship in-house as opposed to doing this in a firm? Yes, absolutely. We've got some articles on LCN talking about this. With I think an example from someone who's done this as well. There are a few in-house apprenticeships, I think. So yeah, definitely worth having a look at. Do you have to do a training contract with the SQE? No, so you can do a training contract with the SQE, but you can also do a solicitor apprenticeship and do the SQE through the solicitor apprenticeship, or a graduate solicitor apprenticeship, do your SQE through that. You can also do the SQE and fund it yourself, and build your work experience up through qualifying work experience, which you can complete in up to 4 different placements, as it doesn't have to be in the 1-2 year training contract. Cool. Sorry, I'm just going through these questions. Alana, what does it mean? Someone's just asked, what does it mean when a firm says that their vacation schemes they're doing applications on a rolling basis?
Sure. So it means that the firm is looking at and processing the applications as they come in, rather than waiting until a deadline has passed to then review all the applications. So they will look at them and probably progress candidates through the process, I guess, in stages ahead of the deadline. So they may have a closing date of, let's say, the 6th of January, for example, but some candidates might hear back sooner than that in terms of moving forward to the next stage. So they're reviewing the applications as they are submitted and moving forward with the process, kind of on a longer scale, if you like, rather than waiting until the deadline has passed and then processing them all in one go then.
Perfect, thank you. And Alana, someone's asked you specifically whether you have any advice on making a successful open day application.
Yeah, well, in terms of AG, our application process for the open days is just to find out what stage of education people are at, and also there's generally one sort of open-ended question which will be looking a little bit at their interest in the firm or why they want to attend, something along those kind of lines. So I think give it the work, I guess, that it deserves. So do a bit of research, show your genuine interest in the firm. What is it that you have maybe come across, or who have you spoken to at some point that has sort of generated your interest in the firm? And I think as well, showing a willingness to learn. So ultimately, it can be one of the first times that we can engage with people, at open days as they're starting out in their degree and starting to look at the different firms that they might want to apply to a little bit further down the line. So I think trying to show that kind of openness also comes across in an open day application form. But ultimately in that kind of process, or in a placement scheme or training contract process, we do want to get to know you, which I appreciate is difficult for me to say to you when these can be application forms. But I think coming back to that kind of open and honest point, so that we can get to know as much about you as is possible within that application is really what we want to see.
Brilliant, thank you. And somebody else has asked whether an apprenticeship is just as valuable as a university degree. Alana, are you happy to answer that?
Yeah, I think there is value in both of them for sure. I think you need to spend a bit of time thinking about what you want to do, and don't follow a process or a route in because you feel that is what you should be doing. I think you also have to enjoy what you're doing, and if you do pick a route that you feel that you would enjoy more, then you will naturally do better at that as well. So I think take the time to really have a look and think about what's right for you and what you're looking to get out of things as well.
Well, thank you. Questions are still coming in thick and fast. We've got 15 minutes, so I just want to move on to kind of we've got a section of questions on kind of issues in the profession. So looking at diversity, SQE, and AI as well. So Fran, just coming to you first, can you talk a little bit about the actions that firms are taking to improve access to the profession?
Yeah, so I know specifically at DWF we run a program called, I think it's called the Ethnic Minority and Social Mobility Program. Off the top of my head, might have been pronounced wrong. So basically it's when you do your VAC scheme or TC applications, you can tick, I think it's a box on the application form, you can tick if you want to be a part of that. There's certain eligibility criteria that you have to meet for each one. And as long as you meet that, you get put into a pot into that scheme. I know here, I think there's 8 guaranteed places on the VAC scheme for those that are successful on that scheme. So it's basically just giving people from different backgrounds the opportunity to actually get their foot in the door, and show basically in the 2 weeks that they're actually like more than capable of doing the job and deserve to be there as much as anyone else does. I know if you're not successful on the scheme, you still get put back into the main pot with all the other VAC scheme applications. So even if you're not successful through the scheme, you still might be successful through the normal VAC scheme pot. I know here as well, at DWF, we use contextual recruitment. And I know on the basis of your first application, they basically blind review them. So they don't look at your name, age, ethnicity, race, anything like that. So it's basically just based off, I think it's 3 questions, and they're very open-ended questions, so you can write about anything you want to write about. So it kind of removes the bias from the offset, which I personally think is really good. I think a lot of firms across being England, UK do that now as well. I don't think it's just particularly our firm, but I think that's a really good thing. I know here as well, we scrapped the requirement for grades, just to give those obviously that maybe haven't done as well in their A-levels maybe a chance at getting into a bigger firm as a trainee, which I also think is really good.
Perfect, thank you. And Anthony, how important would you say diversity and inclusion is to the legal profession as a whole?
I think it's a crucial issue, and I don't mean this in the sense that, oh, give everyone training contracts, that kind of thing. The law has always been traditionally a very old-fashioned industry, and it's changing now. And I think the beauty of diversity and inclusion in the legal world is that the one thing that will never change with law is that it's going to be extremely competitive and extremely meritocratic. If you're good, you're good. It's as simple as that. And I think breaking down the barriers is so crucial, because what your name is, what you look like, where you come from, what gender you are, none of that matters as to how good of a lawyer you're going to be. And we all know that only the best will only the best and the brightest will always be sort of a motto throughout law. And I think it's so important that firms are working hard to make sure that everyone is given the same opportunity to become the brightest and the best, so that everyone gets to sort of unleash their potential and have a proper crack at this sort of wonderful area of work.
Great, thank you. And Alana, we've had a few questions come in about the SQE. So I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about how Addleshaw Goddard has adopted the SQE.
Sure. So I guess the changes that have been brought in by the SQE have meant that there's more flexibility around the way in which trainees can qualify across England and Wales. And we are actually able to offer more than one route to qualification now. So successful applicants can qualify through a graduate solicitor apprenticeship route, or GSA, which might hear it being referred to, or via the traditional training contract route, if you like to put it that way. So in the training contract route, you will complete the SQE prior to starting your training contract with us, and then during your training contract or your period of qualifying work experience, lasting for 2 years, covering 4 6-month seats in different areas of the business. And in that route, if anybody has any previous qualifying work experience, so maybe somebody has some time that they've maybe spent paralegaling, for example, that can be used to shorten the duration of your training contract. And that's something that we would discuss with people before they start with us. And then the graduate solicitor apprenticeship route, so that one lasts for 36 months. And in the first year, you will be studying, and then in years 2 and 3, you will undertake your training contract to gain your qualifying work experience. And I guess the main differences in this route is that from day one, you will be employed with the firm, and that includes the time that you are studying and also when you come back into the business then to work. And similar with the training contract route, the firm will sponsor you through the SQE, and in the second year you will join the cohort of trainees and be known as a trainee, so there's no differentiation at that point between anybody who's come through this route or the other route. I guess one other thing just to point out in relation to this route is that you're not able to use any previous qualifying work experience to shorten the length of your training, but again you complete four 6-month seats over the 2-year period of the time that you're completing the training contract.
Thank you. And someone has asked, can you qualify as a solicitor with the SQE and qualifying work experience, like working as a paralegal? The answer to that is yes. Your paralegal experience will just need to make sure your paralegal experience meets the requirements listed on the SRA's website. It will also need to be signed off by the appropriate person as well. We've got a list of experiences and also how you get those experiences accredited on LCN. So please do take a look at that for any qualifying work experience questions. Just having a look to see whether we've got any more SQE questions. We've done that one. Okay, I think we are good. Lots of questions have come in about AI and whether and how it will affect the future of the profession. Fran, we were going to chat about the impact of AI on the day-to-day, on your day-to-day work. So I wondered if you wanted to touch on this at this point.
Yeah, so at DWF we have a few systems that are AI based that we have access, and the firm have paid for basically every employee to have access to that we can use. One of them is called Copilot. It comes with Microsoft Edge. So basically if I go and type into Google, if I'm doing some research for something, I can type into Google what I want to research. Obviously you might want to use practical law or LexisNexis for first hand, but basically Copilot will come up and I can ask to get lots of articles and things for me, and it basically does the hard work for me. It's a really useful tool. The only thing I would say to that is you need to make sure if you're using AI, especially in your day-to-day work, that you're using it correctly. Like I wouldn't just use all that information and send it to my supervisor. I'm going to go through all that and fact check it before I start sending anything off, because obviously I don't want my supervisor to come back and be like, what's that? Where have you found that? I need to, one, I've read all the articles that it's pointed me to, and two, make sure that it's correct, because obviously if anyone's used ChatGPT before, we all know that it can make things up sometimes. And we also have another system which is called DWF Draft, which essentially is, for a lot of our precedents, we basically go on this thing called DWF Draft, and we have the options, and it's basically to fill out a questionnaire. So if you're drafting, for example, in the banking seat that I was just in, we'd have to draft corporate authorisations, which are board minutes, direct certificates, just like your standard documents that you would use in those transactions. You would go into DWF Draft and you would click all the options, and it's basically, instead of having to draft it all, you click on, do you want this? Yes. And then it would basically pull out that document as you want it for you. So it's a time-saving application, which is really good. I know we're not allowed to use other methods of AI in our day-to-day work, but obviously we have the ones that we are allowed to access provided to us. But I would say it's really helpful, and I think the more AI is integrated into the legal sphere, I think more firms obviously will, and DWF will start enhancing their applications, and it'll be used a lot more in our work.
Great, thank you. I think it's evolving so quickly as well. We've got one attendee who says that they're worried about the impact of AI and whether they should be learning it at school, how to use it at school. But I think the tech's evolving so quickly. Law firms are kind of grappling with it now and trying to figure out how to use it and how to use it most efficiently. So I think it's one of those things that will just continue changing. So I guess the important thing would be to have your finger on the pulse kind of keep up to date with what's going on in the world of AI and what law firms are doing.
Can
and
I
I guess
just add something to that?
Yeah,
Sorry. Just in response to that question, obviously, I say as juniors, we're a bit more tech orientated. So obviously it's a lot easier for, before I knew what AI was, or ChatGPT, just using that as an example, we're very curious about these things. So we will just go on and play around with it and essentially learn what to do. Whereas some of the more senior members in firms obviously aren't like that because they weren't brought up with computers or AI, whereas we are. So I think as juniors, we're in the best place to start playing around with it and things like that. So I wouldn't worry about it at all.
Well, thank you very much. And then Alana, just thought it might be worth touching on the use of AI in applications. Obviously, I think each individual firm will have a different kind of stance on this. Some will be fairly similar. But what is the stance at Addleshaw Goddard? Are there any kind of policies? What kind of things should applicants be avoiding or be aware of?
Yeah, sure. I think in this instance, I will link back to something I mentioned earlier, actually. So, that thing of that ultimately throughout the application process, we do want to get to know the candidates themselves. Our process this year is going to be changing a little bit. So we are going to have a shorter application form, moving through to a critical thinking test and then a voice interview before the assessment centre. So looking at that, I think it probably goes without saying that we wouldn't want people to use AI on the critical thinking test, and there are things in place there to stop that. We do want to see candidates' individual performance in that test and their own critical thinking skills coming through. Thinking about the voice interview stage, I would encourage people to prepare as they would any normal interview, and your responses should be from yourself. The approach does differ between firms, so definitely have a look at those that you're applying to see their stance on it. I think that be careful, whether you use it maybe to generate some ideas when you're working through your preparation. Be careful when you are inserting that into an application form, for example, because there can be some formatting when things are copied over, which can show that something has come from AI. Also you need to be careful of the language that's being used. So linking into what Fran mentioned there, if you are thinking of using it, then you should be going through it and checking it and making it your own rather than having it as something that was solely generated from AI and copying and pasting that into your application. We want to learn about you, who you are, what you're interested in, what drives you. So you really want to make sure that that's all coming through.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We've got 1 minute, probably less than that. I can't believe how quickly that's gone. And I'm aware that we haven't got through a lot of the questions in the chat box. I went through as many as I could. Please do head to the website and see whether your questions are answered there. Head to the firm's websites as well to see whether your questions are answered there. Just really quickly, Anthony, one of the questions is from Mountains Bay Academy, and we've got a class of year 11s watching, and they've just asked for any advice for year 11s thinking about a career in the profession. So I guess just some closing advice would be lovely.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about it, year 11, you're already sort of quite far ahead. Talk to as many people in the profession as you can. I think that would be my sort of main advice. Try and get as much of an understanding of what it's like. If you're year 11, you're probably old enough to watch Suits. I'm afraid it's not quite like Suits, but I think look into it. And this whole process of reaching out to people, signing up to open days, doing online, even things like this, try and enjoy the process. I think that's sort of one of my sort of more honest bits of advice, because once you become a trainee, you're doing very similar things. You're reaching out to people, you're working with people. So this entire process, as tough and as stressful as it could be, try and enjoy it, because it's absolutely worth it.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everyone that put questions into the question box today and for the panel. It's been a busy session. We've had lots to talk about, and I feel like we could go on for a whole nother hour. I'm just going to launch our final poll on what have you learnt today. So what have you learned today? What solicitors do? University isn't the only route to becoming a lawyer. Opportunities on offer at firms. Non-legal work experience is beneficial. Timeline for making applications, and networking is key to researching law firms' chambers. So just give you a couple of seconds to answer that. Thank you to all of you that are still here as well. I'm aware that we're 2 minutes over. Fab, lots of answers coming through. Just gonna end the poll there. So yes, non-legal work experience is beneficial. That's nice to see, because I think there's a lot of pressure on students coming in that think that they need to get all of this legal experience. So that is great to see. Before we head off, just another reminder to attendees that we will be sending out a link containing the recorded session to this masterclass. So please do keep an eye out for that. A survey will also be popping up once the masterclass has ended. So please fill that in to let us know how you enjoyed today, and whether there are any other topics that you would like us to cover in the future. Thank you again to our panelists and to everyone attending. We look forward to seeing you again at some point in the future. And yeah, remember to head to the events page to see all of the other masterclasses that are available. Thank you, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Bye, everybody.